Welcome back to the studio. Yes, we are talking about colors today. In today's video, there will be a lot of talk about adjusting colors, selecting better colors, and also how to modify them on the fly. They are a mix of warmer tones and, of course, a little bit of pink. The warmth in this painting reflects the turning of the season. If you've noticed outside, you'll see that we are turning into autumn. Some leaves and petals are dying down, making room for the winter foliage. I mixed up, let's start from the top, a warm brown, and you can use burnt sienna for that one. Next up is like a grayish, almost grey-green. Now I used my Viridian and a little bit of the violet in my palette to tone that down, and then also water it down a lot to get a more pastel shade. Next up is like a cool tone muted green that can easily be mixed up with any number of greens on your palette. The secret there is to tone it down with its complementary, which would be a reddish pinkish color. So select a green on your palette and use some of your reds or pinks to mute it. As you can see, all of these colors are of a pastel variety, which means they've been thinned down with water. In this case, I didn't use any white gouache. Next up is a soft pinky peach that was created with a little bit of the original burnt sienna, and I added into that a small amount of cadmium red. The next swatch is some cadmium red with a little bit of, you can say, pale yellow. It's not I think if we could translate it to cadmium, it would probably be cadmium light, which I also used for the next swatch, the last one at the bottom. But this time I added some yellow ochre. All right. You can gather your colors and draw up some leaves, and let's paint together. All right, that first color I'm laying down is more like a warm burnt sienna. So you can just warm up your burnt sienna with the cadmium red that you've already wet. The next leaf is just a thinned down version of that color, and I'm not being too particular. I'm just filling in the leaf right now. That one is behind, so I'll just drop the color in behind. Next up, I'll use the same color for the opposite leaf, but this time thin it out with some water application as well. Did you see me drop in some of that green at the tip? Let's see if we can catch it next time. So here we go. We use some of that dirty color on the brush and then dip the brush back into green, and oops, I forgot a line there. There we go. And just drag the green out towards the stem. So I'll just continue using the exact same brush with alternating between the colors. I'd like my painting to look a little bit interesting, and therefore mix and match the colors and help them to flow into each other. This leaf will start off with green and tip in some mixture of warmth. Next up we'll do green again, and I did add a little bit of yellow ochre just to warm it up slightly. The next leaf is filled in with a dirty mix of the burnt sienna and green. That little one has got more of the burnt sienna. And then lastly, more burnt sienna and green mixture going into that bottom leaf. Tipping in more green and some of that pinky mix as I'm going along. With the first layers on your watercolors, it's important, if you're going to start layering, to absolutely let the first layers dry completely. That way, you'll have a build-up of colors as the next layers lay on top of previous layers. Right there, you'll see me just adding a slight little bit of extra color, and as we move up into the drier areas, I'm taking a smaller brush because we are starting to work on some of the smaller details. So I'm taking much warmer mixes this time around, and as you can see, just glide them on the edge and make sure they are in their right place. Put some water on the brush and blend them out. These second layers are just to add a little bit of color. If you're using a reference leaf, just pay close attention to what the leaf looks like, where the shadows are, where the light hits it, and try and capture any of the blemishes. Big secret here is to add the color where it's needed and wash it out where it's not. Letting this layer dry as well. I'll give it some time, as I'm not going to disrupt everything by taking it over to the hairdryer. We'll just give it a few minutes and I'll forward through the next part. Alright, I've given it about 4 minutes time to just seep into the paper and dry off slightly, and I'm starting at the bottom this time, adding some textural marks. You'll see as we start adding layers, the color saturations are somewhat more translucent and at other times more opaque or not translucent, more concentrated. It will all depend on what you are working from and how many layers you want to add. You can add an extreme amount of blemishes or just keep it soft and gentle. Whichever way you choose to go, remember that layering is key, and using colors that match each other is very important. When you place a warm color on top of a cool color, remember that they will neutralize each other. And the same goes for when you're placing a warm on top of another warm. The effect will be exaggerated. I'm going to give you one last tip about color, and that is never to be afraid to try out new things, but try to use your colors in a way that combine them together or bring them together. By mapping out some of your color play sessions before you start painting, you can come up with a really cohesive palette. Putting these colors together before the time will show you what is possible in the range you want to work in. And remember, when you have your limited palettes, every color that can be mixed with the color you've chosen will bring about a new color. You will have endless possibilities if you just try it for yourself. The colors I used in this palette are the Viridian Green, Burnt Sienna, Yellow Ochre, a little bit of Cadmium Red, a little bit of Cadmium Light, and then a little bit of Violet. You can try out various combinations and come up with your own color palette. This one is just an example, and I'll show you that swatch again. You'll be surprised at what colors you can come up with when you start playing with your color palettes. So for the rest of the video, I'll play out with some music and let you see how I layer and add more color to these leaves while still using that same limited palette in different saturations or different thinned out versions. You'll see it all come together by the end. Hope you'll have lots of fun painting your own leaves and just relax. I don't think there's anything wrong with figuring out what to do next and how to get there on your own skills and your way of working. Have a great day. See you next time.